thought you were the technology guy.
Hello, everybody. This is Sree from BizBuzz, What Matters the Most in Your Business, sponsored by My Work Belt. My Work Belt is a all-in-one software, particularly catering to service-based small businesses. And today we have Bernie. Bernie is being a CEO of a small business, and which is part of a global enterprise, and then turned into a business coach. And he now coaching many executives and also acting as a chair of Vistage chapter here locally in Michigan. Bernie, how are you doing?
Very good. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Bernie, you have been in the shoes of owner, if not executive leader of a business. And now you changed your career from being in the business as an executive leader into coaching the other executives. So, how do you see the difference from being in the business to being outside of the business and helping them to see differently?
Yeah. So again, as a CEO of the U.S. side of a European manufacturing company, I ran a division here in Michigan, about 65 people and about 30 million. So relatively small business, but as
Correct.
a CEO, I was dealing with all the aspects, right? From the finance side to purchasing to sales and operations. I was responsible for the whole thing in that facility here. And obviously, in that role, right, I was dealing with a lot of the people issues, and when you start realizing that you sometimes become the bottleneck for decisions that are being made by not letting go and not delegating your decisions down to other people
Right.
in the organization, that's really the realization where I felt like I needed to really make sure I level up my leaders and the managers and the supervisors in the organization to take on more. So I think that's really the realization that I had, and ultimately when I decided to step away from the CEO role and to open up the next chapter of my life, the leadership development was really the part that I got excited about, and that's really the fulfilling part of the leadership role for me. So that was the exciting part.
So you are saying that as a leader of the business or owner of the business, you are suggesting that the um, empowering your team to be the leaders is a key aspect of the business. Is that seems right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, because right, if we are the roadblock and we become the bottleneck in the business, I always say, you know what, if you're still buying, like clicking the buy button on Amazon for the roll of toilet paper, you're not doing something right, right? Especially if it's a small business with some employees, right? You need to be able to
Right.
trust the people to do the right things and to really help uplift the entire organization. And you do that by uplifting your own people and giving them the autonomy and the authority to do the work
Right.
without looking over their shoulders every 5 minutes.
Now you brought up a very valid point, Bernie, that you become the bottleneck. You were the bottleneck at some point of time. Now, how did you recognize that you were the bottleneck? And then what steps have you taken to remove that bottleneck? And as I'm hearing from you, that you have one of the steps that you have taken is by empowering your team members, your COO or managers or supervisors to remove that bottleneck. But educate us. How did you realize that? What steps have you taken to remove that bottleneck?
I think the realization a lot of times, for me at least, came from right when your growth is stalling, right, and people
Mm,
are constantly knocking on your door, right. The typical thing is like, got a minute, right, and those are never a minute. Those are never 1 minute or 60-second conversations, right. They turn into 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
mm-hmm,
and when you start putting a little bit more structure in place in your organization in terms of who can handle what, right? What can
mm-hmm,
I delegate? And you have to start looking at what are the tasks that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing? And
mm,
the easy way I think to do that is if you calculate your hourly rate as the business owner, uh,
mm-hmm,
let's say you're pull a number, let's say $200,000 of owner
mm-hmm,
for the year, right? And that becomes your salary or your income. Divide that by 2,000, which is the normal 40-day work week, right? For most
Yes.
business owners, it's probably more hours than that, but
Of course.
to make
Of
it
course.
easy, right?
Yes.
You have a pretty good hourly rate.
Yes.
So when you start figuring out, right, is buying the toilet paper on Amazon really $100 an hour task? Or should a 15 or 20 or 25 or $30 an hour person, right, somebody I'm paying 50 or $60,000 a year, should they make that decision, right? And you can obviously put rules and frameworks in place to establish what that authority and autonomy is that they have. But
Mm.
that's, I think, the realization, right? When you are doing those things, and if you don't click that buy button on Amazon, you run out of toilet paper, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you as the leader doing that? There's more important things you as the leader should be focusing on, and I think that's the key aspect. I think for I think the really developing your leaders and working on your
Mm.
leadership development programs, right?
Right.
And what do you do for that?
Now, many of the times, the business owners they think that hey, it is difficult for me to delegate it, and it gives me sense of losing something, losing control over. And sometimes they do feel some anxiety when they are delegating something to somebody else, whether the other person is going to do with the same quality or not. And what do you suggest to those people?
So I think there's the biggest challenge there is, right? Are they looking at what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve, or are they
Hmm.
looking at the steps that are being done to do that, right?
Hmm.
And in a business, a lot of those processes can be very much systematized, and you can put controls in place that you don't have to overlook that, or you need to do the final decision.
Hmm.
If you basically look at this and say, okay, what is the purpose of this, right? Let's stick with the toilet paper. The purpose is to not run out of toilet papers when any of the employees or myself go to the bathroom, right? I have the toilet paper,
All
and
right.
that's the outcome. Does it matter if that person buys it on Amazon, goes to Sam's Club, or runs down to the local dollar store and
Or
grabs a roll of toilet paper? Give them the autonomy. And
mm,
if you look at the risk in that particular decision, right, it's a very low risk.
that's
If
right.
if they don't go and buy the toilet paper in bulk, well, it might cost a little bit more per roll, but is
Correct.
that really ending? Is that really stopping the business from existing? So one aspect that I've really worked with and really like it's called the decision tree. So
Mm,
when you take a tree and you take the leaves and you pull a few leaves from the tree, what happens? Right? Nothing.
nothing happens.
The tree will live. It might not look as pretty if you take a whole bunch of leaves off, but that's okay, right? So those are the
Mm,
decisions that people make, they act on it, and they move on, right? Nothing is
hmm.
happening. So the second one is the branch decision. If I start chopping off a branch of a tree, the tree will still live. And it might not look as pretty, but again, it's not permanent damage, right? The tree will grow the limp and keep going. If I start sawing on the trunk,
Yeah.
now we have a decision that's a little bit more. So the branch decision, so one level back up, is you make the decision, you act on it, and you let your supervisor know that you've made the decision. And that
Hmm.
gives the supervisor the ability to coach you and say, you know what, that was maybe not the optimum decision, but I always say don't call it the wrong decision, right?
Mm,
It's
mm.
not the
I
optimum
see.
decision because if you call it the wrong decision, guess what? That monkey
Every-
goes right back into the office, right? And hey,
Correct.
boss, what should I do here, right? So
Right.
not delegated that. And then the trunk decision, if you start sawing on the trunk, right, it might damage the tree pretty significantly. So those
Correct.
are decisions where the person makes the decisions, comes to you, basically talks to you about the decision. You help them make the decision, maybe with additional input that they don't see, and they go away and they implement, right? They're not,
Mm,
not
mm,
passing it on to you. They're walking out the door with the decision and with your input about what would you do in this situation, but you
mm.
help them coach along, right? So again, it's a coaching ability. And then there's the root decisions. So when you have, right, when you dig up a root of a tree, it's most likely going to be that the tree will ultimately die.
There's
So
no more tree.
certainly in the next storm, right, it might get blown over. So those are
Yes.
decisions that need to be delegated up where you make the decision. But again, you also can bring in that other employee and say, what would you do in this case? What are
Right.
you seeing, right? And here's what I see, and this is the decision. Yes, this is a decision I need to make. right? Buying a new building, buying another truck for the business, those type of things are typically, right, owner's decisions at that point in time. But that
Now,
model has really helped me, I think, right, frame the work, and you can use that same framework throughout your entire organization, and everybody's decision tree is different, right? The
right.
the the line worker or the service technician that goes out in front of a customer has their own decisions. But if they have a lot of autonomy, if they're independently working on an HVAC system or whatever it might be.
Right. So if delegation is something you have explored it very well here, and that's great. Now, how do you change the mindset of somebody who is having anxiety in giving the delegation? What steps would you suggest to remove that anxiety?
Yeah, I think there's a good way to really, I think, teach delegation, and I think it's the teaching the delegation to the person delegating and the person receiving, right,
Hmm.
receiving the task to do that. And I think a key thing here is, right, you start small. You give them the
Yeah,
task, you
I see.
verify that the person can execute the tasks as
Hmm.
you laid them out, right, and
Hmm.
they've understood what's required.
Hmm.
And once you realize they can execute the task, then you gradually bring them up, right? And it's similar to the decision tree. You then ask them, hey, what are the next steps that we need to take to, what are the next three tasks in sequence that you need to do to complete
So
the.
you are suggesting here, take a small chunk first, delegate it, and then gain the confidence. And at the same time, you also, as a owner of the business, you also gain the confidence on yourself. There's, hey, now the world is not falling apart, even if they make a small mistake. That will remove the anxiety, is what you're suggesting.
Correct. And I think, right, by taking small steps and again keep that feedback loop open, right? And if making sure that the people come to you and say, you know what, I'm not quite sure if I understood this right, right? And I think this is
Mm,
this is where you need to build the culture of, right, being open, being vulnerable, right?
mm,
If you show vulnerability and say, hey, I don't know that, right? I need to go and talk to the CPA, talk to the banker, talk to my business advisor, talk to my coach, right?
right,
Shows your employees that they can come to with questions to you, but then use that as a coaching moment, use that as a teaching moment, right? You as
right.
the leader become the
Mm,
coach, and
become the coach.
if you become the delegator, you're just the delegator, right? And the
Mm,
dictator and delegator, you do this, you do this, you do this, right? And you do all the thinking. Then you have a bunch of people that just, yes, yes, boss, right? I'm gonna do this, and you're
right.
continuing to hold on, right? But you need to be vulnerable enough to let other people know that you don't know it all,
You don't know it all. So
and you're
taking that
willing to do
into
that.
the segue for my question, right? Now you're a chair, right? If some of the leaders, many of us, we are in the mindset of that we know it all and we don't need any help,
Yeah.
right? How would you suggest to those people that no, not that's not true? You do need help. You need to be humble enough to accept that. What would you say to them?
I think it really is a mindset for those people, right? It's some people that realize they don't know it all. I think those are the ones that are open, right, to hearing
That's right.
from, whether it's a business coach, whether it's again in a peer group like a Vistage group. I think that's the part, right? If you bring people together that see that others are fishing in the same pond and they are doing the same, right? They're using the same equipment and also having trouble, right, hooking the fish with the same bait, right?
Yeah.
And they're willing to share, and this is I think the big thing, right, to share what have others done, right, been
Right.
there, done that, paid for the t-shirt. You don't need to buy the same ugly t-shirt that I bought 2 years ago. I can help you,
Exactly.
right, avoid that same mistake. But again, that requires humbleness, it requires vulnerability. Say, you know what,
Right.
I've been there, I'm struggling with the same thing, right? I'm not the expert, and I don't know what to do over here. I don't know how to maybe better compensate that or deal with a difficult employee, and how
Hmm.
to handle that. But you know what? The other 10, 15 people in the room might have a suggestion, right? Or if you're working with
So,
with a coach, then right, the coach might have some ideas
right.
around.
Now, coming back to the coaching and being able to realize and be humble, when you were the business leader as a CEO, did you ever had a coach?
Yes, I was in a Vistage group myself, so I started out even in the operational level. So I was
Right.
in a key group, so with other key executives and some small business owners as well. And again, what I've learned there over the 3 years in that group really prepared me to have the confidence
Mm-hmm.
to step into that CEO role, right? In your first
Mm,
CEO
I
role,
see.
I had no experience as a CEO, right? Yes, I ran a manufacturing operation. I had obviously budget responsibilities, I had people responsibilities, but I wasn't involved in sales in a deep level, right? I wasn't involved in finance at a very deep level. I had obviously some exposure to purchasing and things like that. But at the end of the day, right, the understanding how other businesses operate gave me the ability and the confidence to really say, you know what, when that opportunity came along, yeah, I think I can run a $30 million business with 65 people and bring it out of the ditch that it was in. And
Right.
I think that confidence helped me. And then while I was the CEO, I had my coach and my peer group as well as the resources that I could go and take my first time hairy brain ideas of, right, how do I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But the how do I questions, how do I
Right.
do
Right.
this? How do I do that? Right.
That
And that was very extremely helpful, right?
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much for sharing this. Bernie, it has been a great pleasure talking to you and those who are listening to it. And we have covered from being a leader to on how you delegate it and how you empower the other people. And in order to empower the other people, delegation is a key strategy to empower other people. We hear that all the leaders are saying that you have to empower other people. You have to empower other people. But how do you do? Now, with the help of Bernie, now we are realizing that simple delegation is where you're actually taking an action for empowering other people. So if you have taken something and implement it in your business and grow it to the next level, we are very, very happy to see that and hear that. And if you have not subscribed to it, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and like us and subscribe us. And in the meantime, until we see you next time, have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, Sree.